address our water challenges. And our next speaker is going to speak on solutions and how regional solutions can solve Florida's water challenges. Senator Jack Latvala from Clearwater has been in Pinellas County since 1979. He first served in the Florida Senate between 1994 and 2002 and returned to the Senate in 2010. He currently serves as the chair of the Ethics and Election Committee and also sits on the Appropriations Committee, the Appropriations Subcommittee on General Government, the Appropriations Subcommittee on Transportation, Tourism, and Economic Development, Committee of Community Affairs, Environmental Preservation. He's passed nearly 150 pieces of legislation during his time in the legislature. And one of those, significantly, was Tampa Bay Water, and perhaps he'll talk about that. Senator Latvala operates a printing company in Clearwater and enjoys spending time with his children and his 2 grandchildren. Senator Latvala.
Thank you very much, and thank you to AIF for putting this forum together and for the invitation to come over here today. You know, when I was first elected to the Senate in 1994, 20 years ago this year, I had no background whatsoever in natural resources, water, or anything like that. I was a businessman. But 1994 was the year the net ban was adopted by the voters of Florida, and I lived on the water, and I was a sports fisherman. So when I got to Tallahassee and they were handing out committee assignments, I asked, you know, what committee handles the net ban? And I was told Natural Resources. And so I asked for that committee, and I've been on it ever since. So my entire career in the Senate, I've been on either Natural Resources, or as we call it now, Environmental Protection. And it also happened that in 1994, when I was elected to the Senate, someone mentioned, I think Matt mentioned the Israelis and the Arabs. Well, we had something kind of rivaled that war in the Tampa Bay area that we call the water wars. And they'd been going on for a good while, and for many of you that are familiar with the way the state's laid out, and I live in Pinellas County, and Pinellas County does not have very much clean, fresh, pure water under our county. We have been a recipient county for the counties north of us and east of us for many, many years. Our county commission back in the 60s and 70s had the foresight to go buy large tracts of undeveloped ranch land in both Pasco and Hillsborough County, put well fields on them, and that's where we got our water. Well, in 1994, these wars, the water war, had kind of reached a crescendo level. Several things were happening. First of all, the taxpayers were spending literally millions of dollars a year on legal fees, with one local government fighting another local government, or one local government fighting a water management district. And although that was fun for those of you that shared in getting those legal fees, it wasn't too much fun for my taxpayers that I represented. Then something else happened. All of a sudden, we started having the lakes up in central Pasco County and in northwest Hillsborough County started going down, and in some cases drying up. And people's well fields, their personal wells by the well fields, started going dry as well. So Pasco and Hillsborough County started much more aggressively objecting to the situation where Pinellas County was getting water from their counties. Well, it's just so happened this skinny, young freshman member of the Senate, one elected official at the state level in Florida represented both Pinellas and Pasco counties. And that, as a luck of the draw, was me. And one day in my first year in the Senate, I'm sitting in my office in Tallahassee, and all 5 Pasco County commissioners showed up at my door. And in what I'm sure was a violation of the Sunshine Law now, but I believe the statute of limitations has run out on it. They came in my office and they literally begged me to get involved in trying to make Pinellas County understand what was happening in their counties. One or two of the female commissioners were literally in tears in my office with the situation that we had. Now, I will tell you, it is the last thing as an elected official running in both of those counties that I wanted to get involved in was water. Because A, I didn't know anything about it, still don't know much about it, and B, we had a czar, a political boss in Pinellas County whose name was Chuck Rainey. And I had enough political experience to know that as a young freshman member of the legislature, the last thing I wanted to do was take on Chuck Rainey, who'd been on our county commission and really called a lot of the political shots in the county for 20 years before I got there. And I loved Chuck Rainey as a person. I thought Chuck Rainey was an outstanding public official and was a great leader for Pinellas County in many ways. But I soon found out that while he looked after Pinellas County very well in the interest of the people that elected him, he wasn't really looking out for the region's interests as well as I thought he could be. So what I did is, first of all, I went up and I went to the lakes and I got involved in the issue and tried to learn as much about it as I could. Then I did the really horrible thing of going to the other 4 commissioners that we had in Pinellas and one by one quietly took them up to Pasco County and showed them what was happening as well. One of the favorite places to go was Big Fish Lake in the middle of Pasco County, where there were not only were there no big fish, there weren't any little fish, and there wasn't any water for the fish to swim in anymore because of the well fields. So gradually, I won over the commissioners in Pinellas to the fact that we really needed to look at this a little differently than they had in the past. And in a very tumultuous meeting, actually got them to agree to go into some settlement negotiations with the Water Management District. Now, one of the regrets of that situation was shortly thereafter, Chuck announced his retirement. And he left government because, I think in large part because I beat him on this issue. But I will tell you that in later days, before he died, it is relayed to me, the legend is, that he actually, on more than one occasion, would sit around having a scotch at night and would tell his buddies, you know, Latvala was right. And he did come around to the thinking that we needed to look at this from a regional situation. Fortunately, we had some people at the Water Management District that were willing to engage. We had a number of other elected officials in the Bay Area we put together a group. It was called the Gang of 18. And there were six local governments that were involved in the West Coast Regional Water Authority at that point in time. The 3 counties, the city of St. Pete, the city of Tampa, and the city of Newport Richey. And each of their attorney, their utility director, and their either manager or administrator became a group. 6 entities times 3 became the group of 18. And they sat down and we worked out the framework collaboratively for what has become Tampa Bay Water. Now, it's a really good thing we did, because one of the things we were looking at, if we didn't come up with a solution to our local problems, in addition to the lakes and the wells drying up, was we were looking at a building moratorium. Because back in those days, water was a concurrency issue, and if you didn't have the water for your project, the DCA, which had some teeth in those days, could call a building moratorium and shut you down from new construction, new growth. And that was right on the verge of happening in eastern Hillsborough County particularly. So if we had not gotten together, come up with a collaborative solution, we would have had a building moratorium in, at least in eastern Hillsborough County. Now, the other fact of this is that it has not only did we solve the problems, but we created the framework for doing some very innovative things in the Tampa Bay area to lessen our reliance on underground water sources. In 1999, 100% of the water used by the people that live in Tampa Bay came from underground sources. That's reduced considerably. In 1998, there were 1.8 million residents served by the local water utilities. There's now 2.4 million. So we've been able to handle a 25% growth in that period of time. And the really remarkable thing is, with a lot of the conservation measures that we've been able to put into place, that our water usage during that time where we've had a 25% increase in our population, our water usage has only increased by 8.5%. So Tampa Bay Water has done a good job. When I left the Senate in 2002, what I considered to be my major accomplishment, the thing that I would remember the rest of my life and think that I'd done something well with, it was the creation of Tampa Bay Water. I shudder to think what our region would be like today if we hadn't done something like that. And I think we can look around at a number of areas of the state, whether it's the mid-east coast, the Brevard Orange area, whether it's the Panhandle and the Destin Freeport area. We can look at a number of other areas of the state where this same model needs to be used as an example, where every one of the 3 counties and the cities that were involved in this have an equal vote, an equal seat at the table in trying to work out the plans for the future, where it's an interconnected system. So there is no, prior it was St. Pete's water or it was Tampa's water. Now it's everyone's water, because Tampa Bay Water bought the utilities, the existing utilities, the supply sources, connected them all together, which they weren't connected, and now we have kind of an integrated source of where our water comes from. We have a 15 billion gallon reservoir. We have a desalination plant to be used during the peak times, because obviously that's the most expensive water. We use water from that's skimmed off the Hillsborough River still, and as well as dispersed well fields out that are throughout the area, so that there's not a big concentration in any one area, so that no one gets unfairly penalized. So I look forward to the conversations over the next 2 years as we look at water in the legislature again. I think it's probably overdue to have the conversation of how we of a statewide water policy. I think it's probably overdue to look at how we're going to handle the needs not only of business and agriculture, but of the people that have to drink the water and the consumers that guys like me represent. Everyone needs to be at the table, and everyone needs to have a piece of making the policy for the future. And that's what we did in the Tampa Bay area. And I think it's been very successful, and certainly look forward to the opportunity to help bring that to other parts of the state. So thank you very much. And I guess if we have some questions, I'd be happy to try to.